What's up, and welcome back to another episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. I'm your host, Mason Kenahan, and I'm coming to you after the Washington Commanders 55-23 loss in the NFC Championship game to the Philadelphia Eagles. Right after, actually, this thing ended like 10 minutes ago. But here to talk about it is myself, and 55-23. That's kind of crazy. We'll dive into it all. A great season comes to an end in a pretty bad way. A pretty bad game from Washington overall in this one, but we'll get into it, especially towards the end, just kind of looking at the season as a whole and how successful this season was for the Washington Commanders. Let's just start, though, by diving into this game. Washington's magical season ends in Philadelphia in an NFC Championship game where, from the start, it didn't really look like they were there to. They really had a chance much. I mean, that first drive was great. Very uncharacteristic move by Dan Quinn, in my opinion, to not go for it on a 4th and 3 or 4th and 4, whatever it was, when they were in the red zone after they went for it on 4th down twice earlier in the drive. So that was a little bit uncharacteristic from Dan Quinn. Still, though, at the end of the day, I don't think it would end up mattering that much. But defensively, especially, the team didn't look there. It was a rough game. It did not really there's not really much good to look at beyond really Jayden, who kind of played very good for the team that he had out there today. But I mean, going into this game, Washington was without Sam Cosmi with that torn ACL, Deron Payne as well with a finger injury. He was out in this one. And then for the Eagles, you had Cam Jurgens, who was kind of he didn't start, but he ended up playing in the second half, which was a little odd. But it was a pretty odd game overall. Washington controlled the time of possession for majority of this game. Like at one point, Washington was down 14-3. I mean, we all watched the game. Washington was down 14-3, and they had the ball for over 12 minutes. I mean, the possession was actually even. 29 minutes and 29 seconds. Washington had the ball, and the Eagles had it for 30 minutes and 31 seconds, and yet Washington lost by 32 points. 32 points in this one. So, it's pretty crazy. Eagles had 459 yards of total offense, 28 first downs. Washington had 350 yards of total offense, 22 first downs. But again, the name of the game, we all watched it. It was the turnovers. Washington had 4. Philadelphia had 0. Dan Quinn has been preaching it all playoffs long. The ball, the ball, the ball. That is something that he said a lot, especially after the Lions game when Washington won the turnover battle 5-0 or 5-1. I can't remember exactly what it was, but Washington that was their best defensive performance turnover wise of the season, and that's been the message throughout the playoffs: is the ball, the ball, the ball. Washington won the turnover battle in the first 2 games, and then here in this one, just could not hang on to the ball at all. It was really, you had that final interception from Jayden at the end, but beyond that, you had the 3 fumbles in this game, 2 of them coming in the first half, and the Eckler fumble kind of sealed the game and changed the momentum with Washington only down by 11 points with possession, driving down the field, and then Eckler fumbled it, which was not great. But the ball, the ball, the ball, that was the message in this game, and Dan Quinn's message was right. They didn't take care of the ball, and they ended up losing this game. So it was rough to watch as a Washington fan. But then, once the game was over in that fourth quarter, you kind of just take a step back from the game, you look at it as a whole. And, this Washington team, the amount of things they accomplished this year, I said it in my, preseason episodes. Washington had one job, one objective this season, one goal. It was to find out if Jayden Daniels was the franchise quarterback or not. That was the goal. We can easily say that Jayden Daniels is the franchise quarterback. I think that might be the easiest question Washington has. Jayden Daniels is going to be the quarterback for the Commanders for a very, very long time. And the amount of stuff that they were able to accomplish because of number 5 in burgundy and gold was incredible this season. And tonight, it did not turn out right. I guess we'll just jump right into the offense and stuff. But it really felt like it was Jayden out there for Washington, and then it was like 8th graders out there running routes and stuff. So it was rough. Jayden Daniels finished 29 of 48, 255 yards, a touchdown, an interception, 3 sacks, and a passer rating of 72.8. Overall, he was in the positive in EPA per play somehow. But it was a very good game from Jayden. You could tell the guy put the offense on his back. There was really no help at all. The offensive line at some points in this game, especially in the third quarter, I felt like they did a very good job of protecting Jayden Daniels on a couple of drives. Pretty much on the drives where they scored touchdowns, they protected Jayden Daniels very well. On the drives where they did not score touchdowns, they did not protect Jayden Daniels well. So I guess that's kind of the obvious, but it was that's pretty much it. So Jayden Daniels was the leading rusher for Washington as well, 6 carries for 48 yards and a touchdown. I mean, like the guy was the entire offense for Washington in this game. It just, you could tell without Sam Cosmi in there, Tyler Biotish got banged up as well. The talent to overcome was just way too much for this Washington offense. The Eagles defense, props to Vic Fangio and that Eagles defense. They did a very good job of, for the most part, containing everyone else that's not Jayden Daniels. They did a great job in coverage, covering guys like Terry McLaurin, who only finished 3 catches for 51 yards. But if you take out his 36-yard touchdown catch, like 2 catches for 15 yards in this game on 7 targets, which was crazy. They let Zach Ertz go for a legacy game against his former team. 11 catches for 104 yards, a season high in both of those for Ertz in this one. So that was pretty fun. But I mean, you could just tell this team was outmatched talent-wise, and I mean, it was kind of expected coming in. It was expected. Now, I'm not here really to complain about the refs, so I'm not going to comment really on that. Beyond the fact, I will just say that I did not know that if someone jumped over, if you got too many penalties, you could be awarded, or the offense could be awarded a touchdown or something. I'll just say I didn't know that. But beyond that, like if you want me to complain about the refs, I'm not here to do that, because Washington beat themselves up in this game. At the end of the day, they beat themselves up, and like the Eckler fumble really did it for me. You had the 2 turnovers in the first half, but Washington had possession in the third quarter, down by 11 points. Jayden Daniels and that offense went down and scored a touchdown. They got a stop. They got the ball back. They were moving the ball, and Austin Eckler fumbles the ball. That was the turning point in this game, where this Washington comeback was there, and after that point, Washington didn't score for the rest of the game. So it's not all on Eckler. We had other fumbles, the special teams fumble with Jeremy McNichols, I believe, who was the returner in that one. You had De'Ami Brown fighting early in the game and trying to play hero ball. He fumbled as well. Eagles, very good team at punching the ball out in the peanut punches with Zach Bond, Cooper DeJean, Oren Burks. All those guys, great job with the peanut punches. I got to give them props for that, because Vic Fangio has done a great job at teaching this team, and Nick Sirianni too, I guess, with his aggressive mindset of every time you try and tackle him, try and punch the ball out. And you maybe risk some missed tackles, but in a game like this, when Washington was being careless with the football, only holding it with one hand for majority of the catch after the catch yardage, I mean, it turned out well for Philadelphia, and Philadelphia was able to use that to their advantage. So other stuff on the offense, I gotta say, great call from Dan Quinn on the fake punt with Tress Way. Ben Sinnott, we've been waiting for him to make an impact this season, the 2nd-round pick, and I guess he made an impact in this game. So it was a great punt, fake punt call. Only ended up having 3 points on that drive, but it was a great fake punt call from Dan Quinn there and Larry Izzo there. So great drawn up play. I was going to give my props to Larry Izzo and the stuff he's been able to do with his special teams unit. And then Jeremy McNichols fumbled. But I mean, still, it was great. It was great. So the catch for Sinnott for 23 yards. Other stats, De'Ami Brown, 3 catches for 42 yards. Brown, it was kind of a fine game from him. It wasn't anything crazy. I mean, like 3 catches for 42 yards if you like say, oh, De'Ami Brown had 3 catches for 42 yards a year ago, it'd be like, oh my goodness, this guy's actually like getting snaps. So if you want to look at it that way, that's good. Good. He had 3 catches for 42 yards, but in a game where you really needed someone to step up that wasn't Terry McLaurin or Zach Ertz, you needed a third option sometimes. It was not enough. Olamide Zaccheaus, 4 catches for 26 yards. Eckler, 5 catches for 17 yards. He had an EPA per play of negative 1.4 or something like that, 1.04 or something. So every time he was out there, he was losing Washington a point, expected point added. So that wasn't good from Eckler. John Bates, 2 catches for 11, and Crowder had 1 for 4. But it was a game that Washington, I feel like, could have been in at some points, but they just beat themselves up offensively with all these fumbles. Eckler fumbled, McNichols fumbled on, I guess, on a kick return. De'Ami Brown fumbled. All 3 of those guys, like, you can't do that in a game like this. And I know this is, I mean, I was kind of more shocked about the Eckler one than the other 2 because the other 2 are pretty young players. But the Eckler one, as a veteran, I mean, he knows to not fumble or like to protect the football. But I mean, this is a young team, and Jayden, I cannot praise him enough of what he did and what he was able to do with the stuff he was given today. Him and Zach Ertz were on a completely another level compared to the rest of the offense. It was fun to watch those 2 go, and it was fun. You could tell in the third quarter too, when this team was down 18 points or 19 points, whatever it was. I think it was 19 points because Philadelphia went out and they scored a touchdown to open up the second half, and it felt like it was over. And then you could tell Jayden kind of just played loose, and it kind of it kind of spread with the entire offense. The entire offense was playing loose. They went down. They scored the touchdown and the 2-point conversion. And the Jayden touchdown run, by the way, the man is just so gifted, so talented. Like the guy is so good. And great decision maker as well. But you could maybe say they were playing too loose with the Eckler fumble or whatever. But I mean, once they went down, they scored a touchdown. Jayden, you could see him smiling on the sideline, even just throughout the game. I mean, the team was down for majority of it. I think it wasn't until the fourth quarter when he was just like, yeah, we're losing this game. But for like the first 3.5 quarters, the guy was still smiling out there, even though his team was down like 15, 16 points. And I mean, you can't blame him. The guy was playing some real good football. It was just kind of the team that was letting him down offensively in this one. And I made a joke like Jayden might as well just run it every play, because was something that I did not want to see is Jayden Daniels not trusting his weapons because they might fumble. So, because I mean, De'Ami fumbled, Eckler fumbled, and from there it was just like, does he even trust them? You kind of start to like trust issues start to become a thing with all these fumbles. So that was something to monitor. But I mean, the guy's playoff run, I'm going to read the playoff stats that he had, because his playoff run was something special this season. He had 268 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks against the Bucs, 299 yards, 2 touchdowns against the Lions, no picks. And then in this one, 255 yards, a touchdown, 2 total touchdowns, one on the air and 1 on the ground. He threw the pick at the very end, but the guy took 4 sacks the entire time, 4 sacks the entire playoffs. 51 sacks in total, which I mean is kind of a lot, but like even towards the end, especially in the playoffs, you could kind of see it click with him, and he was able to evade a lot of the pressure that he was getting, and plus the offensive line I felt like stepped up and had a good game against Detroit. But overall, I mean, I cannot praise this guy enough of what he's been able to do, not only for his team, for the city. In the season, giving Washington fans so much hope on what is to come for this team, because now this team's in the NFC Championship game. That should be the expectation next season, right? Let's flip things over to the defensive side. I gotta talk about it. Jalen Hurts went 20 of 28 for 246 and a touchdown. He only took 2 sacks, which props to Jalen Hurts on this one. I felt like Jalen was pressured multiple times in this game. I thought Washington's defensive line did a very good job of getting to Jalen Hurts and forcing him out of the pocket. But Hurts, even with that hurt knee or whatever it was, I don't know how much that actually affected him because he didn't end up. It didn't end up being like it didn't end up looking like it was a problem at any point in this game. But Jalen Hurts, I mean, his ability to, I mean, it took 4 or 5 seconds sometimes, but his ability to throw the ball away and make smart decisions when he was outside the pocket was, I guess, fun to see if you were an Eagles fan. But that was exactly what I wanted Washington to do because um, we haven't seen Hurts be able to do that in recent weeks. I know he's done that in the past, but he kind of went back on his on his bad habits in the last few weeks, and so I wanted Washington to get pressure on Hurts and to force him outside the pocket, and that's what they did. And Jalen Hurts was able to deliver on a lot of his throws. AJ Brown had a big game, 6 catches for 96 yards and a touchdown. I guess, do I want to talk about Marshawn Lattimore? I don't know. I mean, I guess is exactly what we were going to get. He kind of gave up that touchdown at the end of the first half. Didn't really seem like he was in headspace wise in the game in that first half. But yeah, it was a rough one from him in this one, which we're saying that a lot now. We're saying that a lot. So hopefully next season we can trust him as he like resets from his hamstring injury and all of that. We can trust him more. But only 5 players caught a ball today for the Eagles, which I guess is a normal now that I look at it. AJ Brown, Goddard had 7 for 85. Smith had 4 for 45. Gainwell got a couple. Barkley had 1. And I guess that's a normal. But 96 yards for Brown, 85 for Goddard, 45 for Smith. Like, this is just too much. And yeah, 26 in green doesn't help either. Saquon had a lot of yards in this game. Now, after that big first one, when he had that 60-yard touchdown on the very first play, he went 14 carries for 58 yards, 14 carries for 58 yards, which is like, I don't know, about 3 yards per carry, a little bit over that, I think. A little bit over 3 yards per carry. So maybe 4, almost 4, like 3.8 yards per carry, which for Saquon Barkley is not a lot. And you take that. So I know Shipley kind of just destroyed this defense, this run defense at the end. And I know Barkley went for 3 touchdowns. And I mean, the Eagles rushing offense went for 7 touchdowns, 36 carries, 229 yards, 7 touchdowns in this one. That is insane. That is insane. So, I mean, guys, Walter Nolan, defensive tackle out of Ole Miss. Is he a Washington Commander? Like, Adam Peters is going to need to get on it because this defense just let up 55 points. I know they were put in some bad positions sometimes because of the turnovers, but this defense just let up 55 points to this Eagles team. So, I know it's not the normal, normal thing or whatever, but 55 points is still a lot of points in any game. So just saying, Adam Peters is going to have to get the work this offseason. And other stuff, yeah, basically Saquon ran for a lot of yards in the first quarter like he always does against Washington. Jalen Hurts had a very good game. I got to give him props for that. And he did not take a lot of negative plays, which was something he's had a high negative play rate in the last few weeks. I thought Washington, if they could get some pressure, and they did, rushing only 4 sometimes as well. So even without Daron Payne, I felt like Carl Davis did a great job in the backfield. And for the most part, I mean, the run defense wasn't that good, but the pass rush felt it got home sometimes, especially rushing 4. Frankie Louvu, great game from him. I know he had a whole lot of penalties and stuff and whatever, but overall, it was a great game from Frankie Louvu. It was pretty much the reason why you bring him. Is because of the energy he brings and the plays that he can make in the backfield is why you bring him to Washington. And that is, I mean, they got close to it. So Jeremy Chin had nine tackles, Bobby Wagner 9 tackles, a tackle for loss. Allen had a tackle for loss. Frankie Louvu had 2 tackles for loss, and Dorrance Armstrong had a tackle for loss. Louvu had a sack. Armstrong had a sack. There's things to work on for this team, that's for sure. Mike Sanders still not entirely confident in him being on the outside next season. I know some Washington fans were like, maybe Sanders still can live on the outside after last week's game against Detroit. I still think it's best for him to play on the inside and against the slot. I think it's still very, very crucial for Washington to bring in a very good corner whether that be in the first couple of rounds of the draft or through free agency. I think it's crucial for them to bring in another corner. We cannot go into next season with the same cornerback room or like the same cornerback room plus a day 3 pick. That cannot happen. That cannot happen. So it's it was rough. It was rough. That is for sure. But other stuff, Quan Martin had I guess an okay game. It wasn't anything crazy. Some of the tackling angles they had, especially early on in the game against Saquon, you cannot I guess this team realized you cannot make these mistakes. These small mistakes, like a missed tackle here, a missed tackle there. You cannot make those small mistakes against a very good team like the Philadelphia Eagles in a game like this. I think it was crucial for a lot of these young players to play in a game of this magnitude very early on in their careers. You look at Johnny Newton, who had a big role in this game. You have Mike Sanders still, of course, Jayden Daniels, those guys. They all played in an NFC Championship game in their rookie season, which I think is good because you get that experience, right? You get that experience, and even though it didn't really work out that well in this one, it was huge for this Washington team, this young Washington team. I know there's some older veterans on here, but this, for the most part, young team that a lot of the future doesn't rely on Bobby Wagner or Austin Eckler, right? Like a lot of the future relies on Mike Sanders still, and some of these other rookies, Johnny Newton, Javonte Jean-Baptiste, and those guys. So there's still a lot to learn from a game like this. Washington will clean out their lockers, I guess, the day this episode's coming out. But still, it was a game that you kind of just look back at this game. This game gave Adam Peters a very good. I guess we can go into the final thoughts here, but like this game gave Adam Peters a very good view of how this team needs to improve. And there's still a lot of improvement needed in this team to be one of the top teams in the NFC or in the entire league. You will be competitive with 5 at quarterback. We know that. We found that out halfway through this season. But you cannot. I mean, 5 can't play defense, or he can't catch a pass, right? Or he can't play on the offensive line. It is awesome what Jayden Daniels can do and what Jayden Daniels can bring to this team, but he can't do everything. And I think this team and this roster still needs a lot of work. The talent on this roster was like probably towards the bottom in the league when going into the season, what people looked at this team as. But somehow, some way, this team found a way to get not only into the playoffs, but into the NFC Championship game, win 2 playoff games, including beating the number 1 seed in their house. If you want to look at it, injured team, whatever, it's still the number 1 seed, a very good offense in their house last week, and then making it to this championship game. And I mean, you look at the score through 3 quarters, it was an 11-point game. So that's just saying, like, this team was close for a majority of this game. Even after the turnovers, it was still a 2-possession game, 11-point game. That's a touchdown, 2-point conversion, and a field goal to tie. And this team looked like they could do it at one point, but they just beat themselves up towards the end of this game. And once the 4th quarter rolled around, it was all over. But I mean, it's still a lot to learn. And you look at the season overall. I mean, we all know there's a bigger picture here with this Washington team. It's not just this season. It's not. I mean, Washington's going to be competitive for many, many more years, and it's fun to say that. It's something that I've been looking forward to for a long time. And not only has Jayden Daniels given me a lot of hope in this team, but also guys like Dan Quinn, Adam Peters. I have my full confidence in Adam Peters to go out there and be aggressive in free agency and this offseason overall to bring talent in and support a guy like Jayden. Washington comes into this offseason with the 3rd most cap space in the entire league. Make some moves at him. AP is going to make some moves. He's going to make this team better, and I have full confidence in that. And I don't remember the last time. I don't think I've ever been able to say that about a GM of this team. So it is awesome to see. It is disappointing tonight, but in the future, it's a bright future ahead. It's a bright future ahead. And it's going to be a long off season for sure. Waiting to see this team play again all the way until August is the next time Jayden Daniels will be on a football field. But I mean, we've got a lot of highlights to look at this season. I'll just say that we've got a lot of highlights to help us with that long 6-month break or whatever until August. So it's going to be a long off season, but I mean, just looking back at the season, reviewing it over the next week or so, this team is special. This team was a magical team this season. Not in my eyes did I see nowhere. I don't know if anyone believed that this team was going to win 14 games this year, make it to the NFC Championship. All right, and compete for 3 quarters. We didn't compete for like the last quarter and a half, so maybe 2.5. We competed for like 2.5 quarters, but still, it was a fun team. This is a team that I'm always going to remember. I know every season is different. Will Bobby Wagner be back next season? Don't know. Will a guy like Jeremy Chin be back next season? Not sure. Who's new that's going to come in though? What draft picks are Adam Peters going to make? Sounds like Cliff Kingsbury might come back. Sounds like Lance Newmark is going to be able to come back as well. So it's huge for this team to get a lot of their leaders back. Bobby Wagner probably will be the biggest leader that is questionable to return just because of how he's on the older side and don't know. I mean, he's already had a Hall of Fame career. First ballot Hall of Famer he is. So we'll have to wait and see about him. But I'll always remember this team, just the miracles that happened. You look back at the Bears game. You look back at the Bengals game. The Bengals game is probably when we all knew that kid Jane, this guy is special. That Bengals game back in week 3, that throw to Terry to win the game. We all knew, or to clinch the game, whatever it was. We all knew at that moment that this quarterback that we got is special, and he's given us some special moments. He's given us 5 game-winning drives in the 4th quarter and overtime this season. He gave us not only that game against Chicago, but you think about the game against Philadelphia in round 2 in week 16, the Bucs leading the team down the field into field goal range. The Lions game, right, putting up 40 whatever, 45 or something, whatever, however many points we scored against the number 1 team in the NFC. Not every team is the same, but I mean this team, a lot of the pieces are going to be back next year. Plus, there'll be a lot more talent onto this team in the future because of who Washington has in upper management, which we can't really say that for previous years. So I'm looking forward to it. That's enough of me yapping. But next podcast will be out sometime this week. I am waking up currently at 3 a.m. I will be awake on a plane by the time this episode comes out. And on my way to Mobile, Alabama for the Senior Bowl. So next podcast will be out sometime this week. I got to look at the hotel Wi-Fi, all of that, see what's working. If it doesn't come out on one of these days, I want to do a recap podcast every day or for most of the practices this week at the Senior Bowl because I'll be there. And now that Washington lost, I expect Adam Peters and Lance Newmark and those guys to be there as well, Dan Quinn. So maybe I'll get a chance to see them. But it's going to be a fun week in Mobile. I'm going to try and get a podcast episode out every day, but we'll have to wait and see because of the hotel Wi-Fi. I'm not sure how much I can trust it. If not, though, the next podcast will be out probably Saturday or Friday night, Saturday, before the Senior Bowl game, recapping the week of practices. So that'll be it for today's episode and the final episode of the 2024 season of Keeping Up with the Commanders. 47 episodes this season. We're still going. I mean, it's still going to go. We usually go all the way through the NFL draft, but even though the season is over, stay tuned in. We're going to be talking NFL draft, free agency, all of that. Targets coming up for Washington and who Adam Peters should be targeting. This week, we've got a packed Senior Bowl week. Going to be a lot of content out on here and also on my Twitter at Mason_Kenahan. You can follow me there as well. But yeah, that'll be it for today's episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. I'm your host, Mason Kenahan. See you guys in the next one. Peace.